Okay, everyone, it's Tuesday, the 20th of February, and this is the Celtic Way morning briefing. I am Hamish. We've got Tony and Kevin on with me today to chat some more about Celtic. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I can see the live chat is already a vibrant place to be, guys, and I'm sure it will continue that way over the next half an hour or so. Kevin, how are things, both personally, if you want to, and particularly Celtic?
Well, I'm one of those sad characters where Celtic's fortunes, for better or for worse, are inextricably tied up with my personal life and spiritual life. I know it shouldn't. We're supposed to separate them, but it doesn't happen, does it? I'm glad that I participate in this podcast on a Tuesday, and it's 2 or 3 days. It gives me 2 or 3 days to kind of process and kind of get things in perspective about how murder we are on the park right now. And you kind of, somebody like me who's been around for a few years, you start reaching for the old coping mechanisms. So it's like, well, we can't win it every year. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We need the competition to make us more competitive in Europe. You don't appreciate the good times till you've had the bad times. And we've won 11 titles out of the last 12. 5 trebles and 7. We've won 8 trebles, they've won 7. We've won 20 doubles, they've won 18. But the fact is, yeah, I know everyone should calm down, and we've won 8, drawn 2. But the fact is that I've seen previous Celtic teams where we've just not been very good because we haven't had the resources, or we've been outgunned in the transfer market. But the fact is, these problems that we're encountering are all of our own making.
Yes.
We've got £7.5 million of international first choice centre halves, apparently, who can't get anywhere near the team. And we just appear to be giving up the title without much of a fight. To illustrate that, when I say without much of a fight, I'll take younger viewers back to the 90, I think it was the 95-96 season when Tommy Burns was in charge, and I think we lost 1 game all season. We drew 3 times the Rangers. Andy Gorham was breaking our hearts in the Rangers goal. Rangers won the title by a few points.
4 points, Kev.
4. But Celtic, every Celtic fan at the end of that season knew that every single player in that squad had given their all. Every one of them, including, the big name players who might not have had a special affinity with the club. They left everything out in that park every time they took to the park. And I'm not convinced. I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced that all of those players are given all that they possibly could. Yeah, we can point to some of the kind of weaknesses and technique of some of the players. We can point to those 47 passes that we played about in the back, and Kilmarnock were like, you could actually sense Kilmarnock going, what the hell are they up to? We've got a chance here. Let's move up here, because they can't pass it to each other. But I'm not convinced. There's a lot of fight in that team, and I think if we are to lose the league, it'll be more because of that than poverty of talent amongst in that squad, and that sickens me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the big frustration this season, is that what we are seeing at the moment is of our own making. both and on and off the pitch. I would say. I don't feel that everyone is. I'm not going to accuse the players of like downing tools or anything like that. I more just mean that like I don't think everyone is performing to the best of their ability. I don't think they're applying themselves to the best of their ability, and that's slightly different to like running about and all that. I just don't feel even mentally everyone's just tuned in the way they should be for a tight title race, and I think that goes for the boardroom as well. That's been pretty clear in the recruitment team and even the manager for me this season. It just feels like everyone's just kind of letting this season pass them by a little bit, and I think Celtic fans can accept not winning the league. I mean, it's still a painful thing any year, but I think we can accept it if we're just kind of not quite there and you feel like there's progress there. Like, I think if we hadn't won the league in Postecoglou's first season, in an alternative universe, there would have still been support for him and the team after that season. We saw it in Neil Lennon's first full season as manager back in whenever that was, 2011, when we didn't win the league, and it hurt us, but there was still a feeling there that things were going in the right direction and belief in the players. If things continue the way they are this season and the way they're heading, we aren't going to win the league. There's not going to be that same feeling, because it just feels like self-sabotage this season from everyone at the club. Like, we've got all that money, and I know we always talk about all that money in the bank and a treble winning squad from last year, and like it's almost impossible to kind of mess that up to this extent, Tony, but somehow we've managed it.
I wrote about it being an act of self-sabotage the other week there, and you question it, don't you? You really do. From Celtic have for 2 seasons from positions of strength where it has gone like this. The season has turned and teetering on disaster now, but the 10 in a row season, when you basically had the opportunity to print your own cheque. If you won 10 in a row, you could have marketed anything with the number 10 on it, and all the prestige and the glory and the honour that come with that, with no other Scottish club having won 10 titles in a row, and they spectacularly shot themselves in the foot. And you thought to yourself, well, surely lessons will be learned from that. And you look at this season and you think to yourself, another spectacular opportunity to go into the newly revamped Champions League. You bump your gums about lots of money in the bank, and you sit there as smug as you can ever be at the AGM, cracking jokes and thinking life is wonderful. And you do not arm a manager who, I think, if you arm him with the right possible tools, he will get the job done. And now you're playing catch up to a Rangers side, and people say they're no very good, they're no this, they're no that. They might not be very good, but they're getting results. And a manager has come in and got a tune out of the players that the previous manager couldn't. And that's the difference between the two sides at this minute. One manager's getting a tune out of his players, who people still dispute aren't very good. And the Celtic manager cannot get a tune out of his players, who a lot of us would say they are good. Some of them are good, some are questionable. And then, you question the recruitment. The £7.5 million worth of defenders who can't get a game is criminal. It's absolutely criminal. And I've written about it today on the website. Yeah, if anybody had said to you that would be your back four at any point last year or during the Ange era, that you would finish with a back four that finished on Saturday, I've said you would have been laughed out of the stadium and chased down London Road. But that's the situation the club finds itself in now, isn't it?
So, do we give any? This is me again playing devil's advocate. Do we give the club any sort of benefit of the doubt? The fact that we have had horrendous injuries.
Nope.
Has there been a part of this season just been extremely unfortunate?
There are small extenuating circumstances, granted, but you've had the tools with which to address that. I.e., 2 windows January especially, and the manager posting it, and even your captain saying to you, we need quality players. Right? And everybody, Hamish, Kevin and yourself, you turn around and you would say to me, what do we need? arguably need a new goalkeeper because Joe Hart's coming to the end. You need a left back. You know, we need a midfielder. You need a striker. Now, you guys are watching the same as everybody else, right? So if we can see that, how can that not be addressed? Especially when you have the financial wherewithal to do that. And to neglect that is criminal. We've got to be honest.
There's another issue here. Because there's a lot of speculation amongst the fans and others. Bad faith players who don't have our best interests at heart. And it concerns who ultimately gave the green light for those 9 players. So there's a strain of opinion that says that if these deals weren't completed by the time Rodgers came in, they were so well advanced that it would have been next to impossible for Rodgers to have pulled the plug on them. There's another strain of opinion that says, and this is according to what Rodgers has since said, that nobody gets signed without his say-so, and that this was going to be the big difference between his first period in charge. But of course, Rodgers would say that at the start of his second tenure. He's not going to say to the fans, actually, I never signed some of these players. I'm like you. I'm just hoping for the best. Now you can look at other clubs and how, you know, the kind of traditional clandestine manner in which clubs like to do business. Some of that is practical because you don't want to kind of show your rivals your workings, so to speak. It's also respect and how you deal with the players that belong to your rivals. But given all the questions, the understandable questions about how Celtic have underperformed from a position of strength, and with far and away the most powerful budget in Scotland, there's not a Celtic fan I know who has a clue as to how the structure works. So when does Celtic, you know, who's given responsibility for spotting players, flagging them up? You know, everyone says it's Peter Lawwell's son, Mark Lawwell. Others say, well, it's a combination of that and Strachan. Others say, well, you know, there's kind of influence from the City Group. And then after that, the manager will come in and have discussions. But nobody says what emphasis, you know, who's got the most influence there. And we don't actually know if that's true. I mean, for instance, what Brendan Rodgers says, I like this guy. Brendan Rodgers is a coach of long standing, worked with elite players at an elite level. You know, he must have an idea watching football who's available. He's got his own contacts, certainly more than Mark Lawwell and any of the Strachans. But we're kind of led to believe that actually he is not the most influential, or it would appear that he's not the most influential when these decisions are made. Or is he? The fact is, we don't know. We're expected to turn up, pay hundreds of pounds, season tickets, buy the merchandise, memorabilia, and we haven't got a clue. We haven't got a clue about any aspect of the most important process affecting our club. The purchase of players, how much money, what is the budget, is there a strategy? We don't know, and that's unforgivable. But we're complicit in this because we're never, we're only one title away from well, it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, it works. Except when it doesn't.
Fans, eh?
Yeah,
fickle. But I mean, Rodgers did. The closest thing he's probably given us to an indication was at the start of the season. I don't know if you remember when he effectively said the club sign the players, I improve the players that at my disposal. I think he basically said that, and like at the time I remember thinking, right, that might work because Rodgers, like you look at Rodgers' strengths, and coaching would be a strength. recruitment generally hasn't been a strength. We saw that in his first time at the club. So I'm thinking, right, the club have seemed to have sorted out what they're doing recruitment-wise under Postecoglou. So we'll keep signing good players in the main, and Rodgers will, he'll improve them. And this could actually work really well. What I think you've actually seen is the club have been signing players that A, aren't good enough, and B, don't even fit Rodgers' way of playing, and that's been a big factor. Just want to get a few comments in, Tony, and I'll let you come in from Charlie. What is Brendan Rodgers doing about it? It's Groundhog Day every game, he offers nothing new. January signings have not improved. As Kaiser saying, I wish Brendan would walk, if not now at the end of the season, and name and shame the people responsible for the lack of backing. Martin, the only way to get change at Celtic is to embarrass Dermot Desmond. It's about no one going to the stadium and then he can't show his pals what he owns on the golf course, I'll add in. This one for Brian: is there any truth we're about to announce 90 million profits? What is going on with the board? And they gave Kuhn a 5-year deal. I've certainly heard that this may be coming. In fact, did I even hear 100? I'm not sure. But that's going to be sneaked out, I think, by the club at some stage. And yeah, that'll do. Sorry, Tori.
I think you're right. I think we continue to buy players for an Ange Postecoglou team. Even since Brendan Rodgers came in, they thought that worked and armed them with players that would fit that kind of system, not the one that Rodgers wanted to play. And again, I go back to it, they've signed poor players as well. You can't have a manager of standing, as Kevin said, who's worked with elite level players at elite level clubs and hand them substandard players. And this is what's happened. And Rodgers isn't entirely blameless. But you have to turn around and say he hasn't been backed in the way that we think he should have been. He's been given inferior footballers. And again, Kevin says, because I don't think for a minute that he has scouted these players. And also you said, Hamish, that he did say, I'll work with the players that are provided. And then at the AGM, he said, there's not a player that comes in that I don't have a say-so. So there's been a lot of flip-flopping and mixed messages sent out, which is why the Celtic supporters can't nail down who exactly signs the players, who's directly involved in recruitment. And it leads to what Kevin said there, all sorts of theories and schools of thought and paranoia, basically, about stuff. So it's, a club like Celtic should be able to say, right, this guy's responsible for this job. He does this, he does that. That there should be transparency in that, especially when, as Kevin says, it's the most important part of the club, bringing in players, isn't it? And you want to know who signs off on that process at all times.
See, I think that there's I think we could be shocked if we actually knew, because here's why it's really important. Even if you accept the strategy where the club signs the players, I improve them, okay? Let's say you accept that. I'm only accepting that if I'm confident that the players on behalf, the people on behalf of the club have got the credentials, the experience and the track record at signing the right players. And at the moment, I'm not entirely sure who actually does it, who's at the top of that pyramid. And B, if it is Gordon Strachan's son and the chief executive's son, okay, I want to see their CVs. What was there a process to recruit to get the best possible person that would deliver in that vital department, or was it a shoe-in? Was it a done deal? Was there any, what in the CVs of these people who are making these crucial decisions in a multi-million pound industry, satisfying the expectations of the Celtic fans? What do they have in the way of qualifications, experience, or expertise? that allows us to have confidence. So yeah, you can say, yeah, it's a workable model. I improve the players the club signs them. The club get loads of connections, and you trust that they're getting the best people possible. I don't think they are. I'm not convinced that in the most crucial area of club development, I am not convinced that we have. Not only do we have the right people, but they're miles away from being the right people in terms of all that you would expect, that you would ask yourself. If you're given the power by the organisation you work for to go out and recruit somebody in a specific position, you do what everybody else does. You do due diligence, you look at CVs, you might speak to one or two people in the game. You have a bit of competition just so you can get the best possible person. I don't think any of that applies with Celtic. And that's negligence. That is negligence. It's unprofessional, it's amateurish. And it speaks of complacency that, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because Rangers aren't very good. We've got more money. We'll always prevail. Well, actually, wake up, guys, because Rangers this year are better than they have been in previous years. I'm not saying they're great. I mean, I haven't been particularly impressed with some of the recent games, and Celtic should be able to take care of them, but they've got momentum and they're better than they were.
Still a lot of CVs in a drawer, I think, Kevin, is there not? That's the way Celtic kind of conduct business, isn't it?
Aye.
Yeah. It's even the recruitment's been poor, but I think the thing we actually forget is how haphazard the actual signing of players has been in terms of the process, and the fact that we've gone right down to the wire with so many of them, and so many of them have appeared to be last minute. That shouldn't be forgotten either, even just away from the actual signings themselves, how poor the process has been. I think I asked you both, maybe you weren't on, Kevin, recently, how do you feel about our chances of winning the title? Where are you both at at this point with I think 12 league games to play?
So on paper, let's say you come to this, you've been out of the country, but you say, how is Celtic? Let's say you've been in a jail for a couple of years and you've been out. You've been held in some foreign pit. Back, right, how the Celtics doing? What's it looking like? Well, it's coming to the end of February. We're neck and neck with Rangers. They've just taken a 2-point lead, but we've got 2 games left. And then you look down at the squads. Yeah, okay. I draw at Ibrox. I win at Parkhead. They don't win at Parkhead very often. We don't have too much of a problem winning at Ibrox. That'll be a close one, but we're probably slight favourites. That's on paper. But having seen the way that we have played over the last few months, and I don't care. But 8 wins, 2 draws. Who have we been playing? What we've been like? The only time we were convincing was against Bucky, at home in the Scottish Cup. I comes down to attitude. I don't think there's something not there with the Celtic mentality. The players, the mentality amongst the players, and you know what we're talking about. When you look back at some of the games and you're thinking, why is he not tracking back? He doesn't seem to be caring that much. Why is our best player, Matt O'Reilly, just not showing up over the last few games? It just looks... I'm not saying he's not trying. Of course he's trying. But the light has gone out of his game. Callum McGregor gets unfairly criticised in these games because we've turned to him to turn us round. Scoring last-minute goals, threading the passes, that run that you remember. I remember you talking about, you eulogising about at Ibrox last season when we drew 2 each and he just decided, right, I'm not having this, and drives right into the centre of the Rangers' defence. And, the momentum turns in our favour. Because he's done that so often, we kind of look to him. But, when he gathers the ball deeper and deeper and deeper, he can only make things happen when there's movement in front of him, when there are people giving him options. And at the moment, nobody is giving their colleagues an option when they've got their ball with the back, back to the play. Nobody's moving. And that's obvious. That's not rocket science. That's not, you don't require a sophisticated degree of tactical awareness and analysis of the modern game to know that we play in 2 gears at the moment, dead slow and stop. And clubs like Kilmarnock, who would expect to be beaten, as the game goes on, they realise we've got a chance. If we move up on them, if we encroach an extra yard or two every 5 minutes, to the extent that with the last half an hour, that goal was coming. We all saw it. Well, I knew that goal was coming because we literally could not get the ball out of our own half because we were incapable of making an incisive forward pass. And we tried 4 wingers, and not a single one of them was able to get anywhere near the byline. And meanwhile, and I know there's the elephant in the room here, but meanwhile, the best winger at the club, one of the best in Scotland, probably won't play again. And I think these young players, these are young men, and they have a great esprit de corps. These young players, they have to have, and there will be a lot of love in the dressing room for Liel Abada, no matter what the politics of the situation is between Israel and Palestine. He's their young teammate, thousands of miles from home, and there will be a lot of sympathy for his predicament in that dressing room, and you have to take that into account when looking at overall player performances.
Yeah, as you say, it's the elephant in the room, but I actually don't disagree with what you just said there. I think the players, fellow teammates, maybe to generalise, footballers don't often know the full story about political events and stuff. Some obviously do, but yeah, they are probably likely to take their teammates' side. I know Abada's close to a number of people in that.
He's very well liked. I've
Yeah.
had that from various sources. As a young man, he's very well liked within the dressing room and amongst people out with football who have ever encountered them.
Seems like he's heading though. Monty saying just Liel Abada, sick of reading about him. Seems like he's going to be going, I think, to the MLS. There's interest certainly from the MLS, Tony. The chat from Rogers last week was it would be a loan move, but the report last night suggested that it would be permanent transfer. So we're obviously not going to make much money, but is it a case of just that's best for everyone at this stage?
I think that's what you're looking at, isn't it? I agree with Kevin. It's a crying shame, isn't it? Because he is a popular guy in the dressing room, and if he could have recaptured any kind of form, he would have been a vital player for Celtic down this stretch. But I think it's kind of gone too far now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
When the manager's telling you his head's gone, you just...
And I can understand it.
Of course you can, Kevin. And what I will say about Rodgers is he always skillfully manoeuvred it back to talking about the football. He's tread that tightrope, but he's always spoken about it in football in terms, because we know fine well the situation that and the pressure that Liel Abada is under, and he is a young. People forget his age. He's a young man. That's a huge burden, and and Celtic fan, and he's been widely supported by the Celtic supporters, and his teammates, right? So.
There's never been anything against Abada.
Never, right? So we have to... That agenda is a non-starter, completely and utterly. This boy is being supported to the hilt, and it will be a shame to see Celtic cut ties with him if that's exactly what happens, because he's still being a young guy. He's still got a lot of potential and a lot of development, and he will be a cracking player for somebody further down the line, and sadly you're looking at it that it won't be Celtic, but you look at he scored big goals for Celtic, didn't he, in big games?
Yep.
particularly against Rangers. And yeah, like every other winger, was inconsistent. But
Scottish Cup final.
When he turned up, didn't he? And the team performed, and he supplied Kyogo quite a number of times with being able to just do what a winger does, get to the dead ball line or drill a ball across first time. And you'll miss these things, and Celtic have missed these things.
Yeah, those four masquerading as wingers for us on Saturday were just hopeless. Let's not beat about the bush.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely hopeless.
There's a lack of basics with the wingers that are currently in the club, and jury very much out on Kuhn. And was there an argument to start Yang on Saturday? There probably was. I'm fast losing patience. I'm fast losing patience with Palmer, like a lot of Celtic supporters. Yeah, so but this is what you're seeing. So and the club they were in a position to do something about these things, but haven't. So
a few people saying sick, fed up hearing about Abada. I know I brought him up, but I must say I'm getting to that stage. He has been a great servant, a good servant for the club, I think, in terms of what he's produced for us, and he'll be remembered for the big moments. But like, he doesn't want to play for us, so that's kind of where I'm at the moment. If he doesn't want to play, move him on. It's a shame whatever way you look at it, but I don't think it's something we could have avoided. I mean, as I say, I think the Celtic support have carried themselves brilliantly throughout this, really challenging situation. Standing up for what the majority of us believe in as Celtic fans, but also showing support for the player.
I disagree with that. I think Liel, I think it's a sweeping statement to say that the majority of the support believes in it's from what I've seen, this isn't just about supporting Palestine. What Liel Abada sees is a mixture of legitimate support for the Palestinian people who are suffering, but also a targeting of Israel, which is his home country and where his entire identity and his faith, which is basically about our history, it's what ties a lot of us to the club. He sees that being criminalised, slandered, recently since October the 7th, when the people who run the state, with the flags of the flags that are shown at Parkhead, basically slaughtered 1,200 of his own people, and where still more than 100 of them are held hostage. There's legitimate criticism of the Israeli government and backing the innocents who are suffering the reprisals by Israel, but nobody talks about what he has been thinking of, probably like any other Jewish person since October the 7th. What about the hostages? And he goes out and is expected to perform when he sees that. And yeah, you're right. There has been no targeting of him. There's been no chanting of him about, because he's Israeli. But it's difficult. It's a hard ask. And yeah, he doesn't want to play for us. No wonder.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but I'm happy to leave it there, because it's, as people say, we should probably try and stick to the football. Yes, we'll head off. Abada certainly seems to be heading off as well. Someone commenting there about MPH Group. Would they do a better job at bringing in players at Celtic? I think there's a fair chance of that. This video is sponsored by MPH Group and Navien. MPH, of course, are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist. They cover mainland Scotland, and they have a Navien Boiler promotion for you. You've got a free Navien Internet Controller as part of that, flexible finance options, and much more, so you can make the smart move and sign up with those legends. Right, so that's where we're at. We are going through the week. We've got Motherwell on Sunday, guys, to look forward to, or dread, depending on whichever way you come at it. We'll see how that goes. Kevin, Tony, thanks very much for your time. Thanks everyone for tuning in on the live chat, watching afterwards, etc. Please give us a sub as well as we continue to motor forward. And yeah, we'll chat to you this time